Our destination, Vijaynagar in Arunachal Pradesh, one of the country's easternmost inhabited areas and airfields, one with extreme historical and strategic significance. SNG travelled to Vijaynagar in 2021 too, but 2 years later, we've got an upgrade from a Dornier. This time, we're at the Indian Air Force's Chabua base in Assam, flying on a Chinook helicopter to the Vijaynagar salient that borders Myanmar or Burma. On board, Lieutenant General P.C. Nair, the Director General of Assam Rifles, top officers dealing with the area, personnel from the company operation base, and cargo for the secluded inhabitants of Vijaynagar. Irregular flights like this are the main way to get in. The only other option by foot, 157 kilometers to Miao, which takes about a week through densely forested terrain. An all-weather durable road connection though is expected to be operational by late 2023.
The history of this road per se also goes pretty long back. 1970s was the first time when a cavalcade of vehicles went by road to Vijaynagar. In 1974 was the time. Thereafter, of course, this road has been in disuse, or track I would say has been disused, and subsequently in 2013 was when the work on this again started. It's been almost 10 years. Work has been slow. There are a number of factors and primarily being the terrain, which is quite challenging. The road 157 kilometers, as of now if you ask me, quite a bit of progress has been made in last few years. Currently it's a fair weather road, wherein during winters when there are no rains, light vehicles, especially 4x4 vehicles like pickup and all, can traverse through. Work is still on. PDC was end of the previous year, that is 2022. It's not, they couldn't complete it on time. Effort from the government side are on to complete it, and as and when it gets completed, it will give a massive boost to the economy of that place. Currently the locals, they have either use the helicopter facility which is there to come this side, or they have to walk towards Miao. Secondly, the tourism is another thing which will get a major boost, in fact, because that place is beautiful with immense potential for tourism, which in any case will help the locals as far as their economic condition is concerned. From the military point of view, it helps us, it will help us, give us an additional avenue of maintaining our troops as and when required. We have troops which are deployed there. Currently their maintenance is through air. This road opening up gives us that additional option.
On board the Chinook, the DG Assam Rifles explains the significance of the area, Vijaynagar, Chaukan and Hpungan passes, and Putao in Myanmar, and how India secured and inhabited this area in the early 1960s and 70s, preempting an imminent outside move to settle here. That could have given whoever claimed it first access all the way to Guwahati and beyond from south of the Brahmaputra. We have heard the Chinook's distinctive waka waka sound from the ground, whether in India or Afghanistan, and on board, the sound of the engines and rotors means communication for us is through charades or written and typed messages on the phone. Lieutenant General Nair has also oriented us the night before in Jorhat.
Okay, this map is showing the area of the Vijaynagar salient, which is here. It is in the form of a dagger which juts into Myanmar, and a little to the north of it is the tri-junction between India, China and Myanmar. The salient of Vijaynagar itself is bounded between border pillar 176, which is to the southwest, and border pillar 186, which is to the northeast. So this entire salient, like I said, is about 730 square kilometers. What is interesting is, after border pillar 186, there are no border pillars. The terrain is extremely hostile till the tri-junction. Now, if you look a little towards the east of Vijaynagar salient, you find a place called as Putao, which during the World War was known as Fort Herz. And during the Second World War, when the Japanese were advancing through Burma, it is through Fort Herz, or now Putao, that certain elements of the Allied forces withdrew through the Vijaynagar salient. So that was indicative of the fact that it could be negotiated. Anybody who wanted to enter the salient could come through from here. To a little southwest of the salient is the Pangsau Pass, through which the Stillwell Road went.
Before our trip to Vijaynagar, we visit Pangsau Pass and the old Stillwell Road. A little over 3 hours from Dibrugarh, we first drive through the plains, tea estates, the oil city of Digboy, Margarita, Lido, Lekhapani to Jairampur, where we spend the night. With the sun setting as early as 5:30 p.m., it's inexplicable why the northeast doesn't have a different daylight saving time. With dawn cracking as early as 4 a.m., it really makes sense. The day is a clear sunny one as we drive up to Pangsau Pass. The historic 1,726 km long Stillwell Road was constructed by Allied soldiers led by the US during the Second World War. It started from Lido in Assam, one of the railheads of the Bengal-Assam Railway in the upper Brahmaputra valley, to the Burma Road, which connected to Kunming, China. It passed through Lekhapani, Jairampur, Nampong, and the Pangsau Pass on the India-Burma, now Myanmar border. Hidden till the 1990s, on the way to Pangsau Pass, our first stop is a World War II cemetery for men who died building that road. It is still considered an engineering feat, built through dense forests, deadly swamps, and rugged hills, even while the World War was raging. Most deaths were caused by malaria, the monsoon, dysentery, snake bites, and accidents. The Japanese occupation of what is now called Myanmar had cut off the Burma Road, the only land route for the Allies to deliver aid to General Chiang Kai-shek and the Kuomintang army. So the only supply route available was the costly and dangerous air journey over the Himalayas called the Hump. From Dinjan, Chabua and Lido air bases in Dibrugarh district in Assam to Kunming, Yunnan province, China. The Lido Road was to complement the air route and was constructed under the direct supervision of American General Joseph Stilwell. He was the Chief of Staff to Allied forces in the China-Burma-India theatre for the defense of Burma from Japanese forces. The road was renamed after him in early 1945 at the suggestion of Chiang Kai-shek. The construction of the road, historians say, involved 17,000 Americans, 50,000 Indian laborers, and a similar number of Chinese troops. So many lives were lost in the construction that it was called a man-a-mile road. Over 1,000 graves have been found in this Jairampur cemetery. An epitaph for Major Sao Chu Chino, a company commander in the Chinese army, stands out, even in its dilapidated condition. He is one of hundreds of Chinese buried here. Chinese and Indians fighting on the same side. Historical testament to the saying, there are no permanent friends or enemies, only permanent interests. we resume our journey to Pangsau through Nampong and find another link to Vijaynagar. This sign indicates a route that was planned but abandoned because it would have to cut through the Namdapha Tiger Reserve. The Pangsau Pass at 3,727 feet is on the crest of the Patkai Hills. The smooth as silk drive now, in deadly contrast to the sharp gradients, mud and forests which made getting up to the pass a nightmare. No wonder it was nicknamed Hell Pass during the World War. In more recent times, Pangsau was seen as a crucial point in India's Act East policy. There were times till 2020 that border trading markets and open bazaar days took place 3 days a month at Nampong. Both Indian and Myanmarese nationals would buy and sell goods. During these 3 days, both Indians and Myanmarese were allowed to cross the international border at Pangsau Pass with the necessary permissions. As a natural progression, these now desolate border trading hearts were inaugurated in January 2020. Local media reported the overall infrastructural cost at 3.53 crore rupees. The border hearts, though, have been empty shells since legal trade was stopped because of COVID in February 2020. Locals hope this lifeline of trade will reopen soon. The Myanmar coup in February 2021, though, makes its fate uncertain. On one of the few days with great visibility here, the so-called Lake of No Return can be seen clearly on the Myanmar side. The never-proven myth, it served Allied pilots a soft landing or crash site during their return mission flying over the hump. Historical facts, though, remind us that almost 600 aircraft were lost during that operation. Also a reminder of the dangers faced here: bullet, mortar and RPG holes on these hearts. More than 3 dozen or so NSCN and Alpha insurgents attacked this post in August 2022 in the run-up to Independence Day. The repulsed attack highlights why personnel in sufficient number have to be on constant vigil. On the Indian side, only one JCO received minor injuries on his hand during that attack, while radio intercepts indicated casualties on their side. History as we know it now, and Vijaynagar could have also been a casualty if far-sightedness had not been at play.
Now you see the place called Putao very clearly here. It's a clearing. It's a relatively big township. Now this is where the Chinese were supposed to have started some movements in the early 50s. In fact, in 1956 is when we got reports of some Chinese movements there. And as the Chinese started getting more offensive in their behavior, as they started amassing more troops towards the India-China border, which is now called as the LAC, the government of India decided that we need to go and physically occupy the salient, which till then was not occupied at all. That is when a force under a major from 7 Assam Rifles was sent into the salient to see how far he could get in. This expedition, led by the major, consisted of roughly a platoon strength about 35-36 people. They could not go beyond a place which is now called as Gandhigram. When they reached here, they found a small hamlet consisting of some people. These people are essentially Yobins. These people are supposed to have come somewhere between 1948 to 1950. They came here hunting for wildlife, particularly for musk deers. That is the history of when these Yobins came in here. Now, since this party could not progress beyond Gandhigram, it was because of the rains, heavy rains. A second party was sent, led by the then IG of Assam Rifles, Major General Guraya. They then decided that there is a need to occupy this salient for 3 reasons. One is, of course, establish a presence there. Second, to occupy the important passes that are there into the salient. And there are actually only 2 passes. One is the Hpungan Pass, which is here and on the north. Sure. And then is the Chaukan Pass, which is here. So if you occupy these 2 passes, there is no way anybody can enter this salient. The southern part, of course, was with us, so that was not an issue. So General Guraya came in with this party, and then they moved into this salient. One sub-team went to Hpungan Pass, and the other went to Chaukan Pass. They moved with a strength of about 111 men. There were a total of 7 officers, 11 JCOs, and 111 men. But for their logistics, they had almost 365 mules, besides almost 100 porters. So that is something that we need to remember, how difficult it was to sustain them logistically. This expedition under General Guraya was able to complete this expedition in about 84 days. Wow. And it is somewhere in December 61 that we hoisted a tricolor both at Hpungan Pass as also Chaukan Pass. And that is how this salient came with us.
The advanced landing ground in picturesque Vijaynagar Changlang district is one of the easternmost lifelines in Arunachal Pradesh.
Post discovery of Vijaynagar by Assam Rifle troops, the construction work of the same commenced on 23rd November 1961 and it was completed on 2nd January 1962. That was the same day when aircraft Kalinga landed over there. And since then, the ALG has been acting as the lifeline of Vijaynagar as there were no roads which were existing. As on date, if we see that ALG is being used by civil hepters and also Chinooks and Mi-17 for ferrying of the loads of our troops which are deployed over there, and also acting as lifeline for the civilians, wherein all their ration and other essential commodities are being ferried by the hepter. So since then, all the locals, the local habitats of Vijaynagar, that is the Lishu tribe and the Gurkhas, so they have been supported by the Assam Rifles, wherein as part of our Assam Rifle civic action projects, wherein owing to the needs, the basic needs of the locals over there, for farmers there were handheld tractors which were provided to them by us. Then there were water tanks, those are syntax tanks for storage of the waters. There are, as there is no electricity as on date, so there are solar street lights, and in maximum of the households there have been street lights, solar lanterns which have been distributed. More so to help the locals in earning their livelihood, also we have provided them with the sewing machines. Recently, the local youth of Vijaynagar and that circle have been trained by us, wherein they have cleared the Agniveer recruitment, so that that has been done with the aim so that they join defense forces, the security forces, and that they earn their livelihood from that.
Assam Rifles not only played a critical role in discovering, wrecking, establishing a presence and raising the tricolour in the Vijaynagar area, they continue to support the local and ex-servicemen settlers here with their basic needs and livelihoods.
Yes, 91.
Government had taken this call to settle the ex-servicemen also there, and they were primarily AR ex-servicemen. 200 of them were settled between 1967 till around 1970-71. This was post the Chinese aggression of 1962 when this decision was taken. Since then, the numbers of these AR ex-servicemen has increased there. I mean, they have their families and all that who have stayed there. So currently the demographic profile of that area, I mean the overall population is around 7,000 as per the present count, out of which almost 50% is the Yobins, and almost similar is the Gurkhas, that is AR ex-servicemen, with the Yobins being slightly higher. You can say probably pitch it at maybe 60-40 or 55-45% is how it comes out. See, all these years since 70s when they were settled there and till today, wherein they have settled themselves there, they have met the national obligation as was required from them. There were certain promises which were made to them. Some of them are yet to fructify, and however, as far as both the communities are concerned, that is Yobins and the Gurkhas, by and large their relations have been cordial. There are undercurrents with respect to primarily sharing of power when it comes to Panchayati Raj elections, with Yobins having been granted ST status, and the Gurkha ex-servicemen do not have that status. So those kind of undercurrents have been there, but by and large their relationship have been cordial.
While it's crucial that the state and central governments deal with the local undercurrents, the importance of how Assam Rifles and General Guraya changed imminent history has to be repeatedly underlined.
When General Guraya and his party were a little southeast of Gandhigram, as they were going towards Chaukan Pass, they met about 300 people who had just come in from Bhutao. And they told General Guraya that there are about 3,000 people who were planning to come into the salient very soon, in about a week's time. And most of them were armed as well. And they were obviously Chinese. So just see the effect that would have been there if our team hadn't reached there, our expedition hadn't reached there in this time frame. A week later, this entire complement of 3,000 people would have entered this salient, and history would have been very different. This salient would have never been ours. That is important.
This is StratNews Global. I am Amitabh Revi. Our guest today, or should I say our host in Jorhat, is the Director General of Assam Rifles, Lieutenant General P.C. Nair. General Nair, really appreciate you giving us time at such a busy time for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amitabh. Thank you for having me over.
We're just looking at the larger picture now, the role of the Assam Rifles, the wide-ranging role, with the border management, its development as well. Could you just enlighten us on that?
See, fundamentally, our roles are threefold. One is provide the security of the borders of our country. In this incident case, the Indo-Myanmar border, as also provide a sense of security to the people living in the border areas. The second is to prevent all kinds of trans-border crimes, whether smuggling, narcotics, movement of insurgents, movement of unwanted elements, such like. And the third is, of course, a restoration of breakdown of any law and order situation, like what has just happened in Manipur. So fundamentally, these are the three roles that are legislated for us as per the Assam Rifles Act. From these come the two basic duties that we do. One is the border guarding role along the 1643 kilometers of Indo-Myanmar border. And the second is a counter-insurgency role, which we are not only doing in the northeast, also we have 2 battalions in the Kashmir Valley now.
When you were talking about, say, a situation like Manipur, which is ongoing, now that itself highlights this wide-ranging role of the Assam Rifles, right?
True. Traditionally, people always thought of us as either indulging in border guarding or counter-insurgency. This is a role which we have been addressing in small measures, but this time it was a very big, unfortunate event that happened. And thankfully, because of the domain knowledge, the ground knowledge that we have here, our troops are extremely familiar with the terrain, with the people, with the ecosystem that exists here, which is why we were able to A, respond as fast as we could, and B, provide this sense of security amongst the people, and that's kind of helped in getting the situation to normalcy. As we are going forward, we see things improving day by day.
Again, if you look at in terms of when you were talking about Myanmar, which is a large role that the Assam Rifles plays, explain to us the situation in terms of both COVID struck and then events across the border itself in terms of the coup. What changed? What is the situation along the Indo-Myanmar border?
Before coming to the Indo-Myanmar border as such, we need to look at what are the relations we share with this country. Sure. Besides us, they share borders with 4 other countries. And the friendliest border that they have is the Myanmar-India border, least amount of trouble. Which is the most trouble-prone areas for them is the China border. The border opposite Yunnan, where you have the Wa insurgents in a big way. So, it's not just China, even the other borders, whether it's Thailand, Bangladesh, also there are disturbances. So, traditionally, not just now, for years and decades together, this border for them, seen from their perspective, is the most peaceful. As a result of which, our relations with them have always been good, no matter which government is there at the helm. And we are continuing with that relationship that we have with them. So, how has it affected our relations? It is not really affected. But in times of COVID, yes, the free move regime which exists between both the countries almost came to a stop. And unfortunately, Myanmar, at least the border areas, the part in their part of towards their country, that was more severely affected compared to us. But I think they've also gradually been able to get over it.
In terms of, again, insurgency, drug running, what exactly does the Assam Rifles have to do or has been doing?
Now, you asked a very interesting question, and this is very current. While insurgency, the role that we play is quite well known. Truly speaking, the violence levels, the insurgency levels have come down. But what has not come down is the level of smuggling that's happening. If I have to quote in terms of figures, this year we've already caught contraband worth 810 crores. The last year it was 870 crores. We are already there. But the year previous to that, 2021 was a huge. It was almost 1,600 crores worth of contraband that we caught. So, let me again talk of 2021, where I said it was a huge. That year is a very benchmark year in the sense that year also was when the other countries in this region recorded the highest catch of contraband. In Thailand, in Laos, in Cambodia, and of course in Myanmar. So, why is it only in these countries that it has happened? It's anybody's guess. Is there an external player playing here?
General, what is the situation vis-a-vis illegal migration when we're talking about Myanmar?
What has happened is you had these large number of people coming in along the Indo-Myanmar border, largely in Mizoram, to a little extent in Manipur, and very less, hardly any in Nagaland. Now here it's a case of, again, a common ethnicity, as a consequence of which you have these people coming up in large numbers. And on the other side, the states which have been affected are Chin and Sagaing. Okay. Chin majorly, and Chin borders both Manipur, it also borders Mizoram, but large part of the border is with Mizoram. And the disturbed areas in Myanmar are bordering Mizoram. That is why a larger influx, in addition to the issue of ethnicity which I said. So, when you have all these refugees coming in such large numbers, there are associated problems. Now, along with these refugees who are coming in such large numbers, there is always that worry of insurgents also moving in, some illegal weapons coming in, and of course the larger issue of contrabands being smuggled in. While there is a humanitarian issue in this, surely, but going forward, we see if unless they go back, we will have problems in our hand.
General, when you say insurgency is on a downward slide, there have been some spikes, etc. But just looking at the events of late, Kolkata Sitwe port connectivity is being established. The Kaladan project was under threat at one point of time. In 2019, there was Operation Sunrise, I think. Your observations about those developments and connect them to now.
Operation Sunrise, both the Sunrise 1 and 2 were huge successes, particularly for us, the second, the Sunrise 2, because this was probably the first time when the militants got a beating in a very big way, and this may be one of the reasons why the insurgency levels have also gone down after that. Like I said earlier, in the last 8 to 10 years, the levels of insurgency violence have come down drastically. But it's not just insurgency that we have to be looking at. There are other issues also of ethnicity, of people identifying more with themselves. I see us not just looking at insurgency, but also tackling internal disturbances in a big way. When we say of insurgency levels going down, we are talking of our side in the northeast. But across in Myanmar, you are well aware that there are close to 35 major militant groups who are fighting the Myanmar army. So there, truly speaking, the violence levels haven't ebbed as much as it has here. But yes, today you have a different situation in Myanmar where there are other forces also which have risen. They're fighting the Myanmar army. What you also said about some of the factions like Arakan Army, etc., interfering in a Kaladan project, yes, that was the case. But today, somehow we've been able to overcome all that. You have the Sitwe port, at the Sitwe port, our minister, Honorable Minister, going very soon. So in times to come, this will not be a major hindrance. And the results will speak for themselves as we go ahead.
Just to flesh out that idea of yours now, if insurgency levels continue to look downwards, then what's the future role of the Assam Rifles?
Before looking into the future, you also need to look into what we did in the past. And let me restrict myself to what we did post-independence.
Sure.
Because we are a 188-year-old force, I'll not touch upon what we did in the world wars, etc. But after independence, in the 62 war, cutting across whichever valleys in Arunachal in the northeast, whether you start from Tawang, come to Subansiri, Siang, Siom, or even Loit Valley. In all these valleys, the soldiers who bore the brunt of the Chinese offensive were the Assam Rifles, because we were at the absolute front. Which means we have been with the Indian Army fighting against the Chinese since the 60s. And then, of course, insurgency, when it started in the 1955, 56, there onward, we've been fighting shoulder to shoulder with the Indian Army. So going forward tomorrow, if there is a problem on the northern borders, we will be fighting alongside as well as we did earlier also. So that's a major role which I see in future.
Just looking at some specific events, incidents, and the lessons learned, General, again now, the ambush of the 46th Battalion of Assam Rifles, and extremely horrific, with Colonel Col Tripathi, his wife, minor son, and I think 4 other Assam Rifles personnel who were killed. What are the lessons that have been learned since then?
It was quite an unfortunate incident, and when it happened, it came as quite a shock for all of us. But if you ask me what are the lessons, the major lesson I think is we can never rule out that insurgency will totally stop here, or there will not be an external hand. I surely see an external hand in this. There was no reason for such an incident to happen in the first place, given that the people who indulged in this act were surely aware of the fact that there was this lady, there is this child who's traveling with the commanding officer. They had absolutely no reason to do this. Probably to the best of my knowledge, in my long years of service, I think this is the first time that such an incident has ever happened. Though there was some statements issued by the people who indulged in this that they were not aware of this. That's surely not the case. They would have known and they would have done. So this is one lesson, I think a major takeaway for us is insurgency cannot be ruled out overnight. There will be some sporadic incidents like this. And I attribute this that there is somebody else who has a role to play in this.
And again, talking about incidents, the Mon incident, mistaken identity and error of judgment, Assam Rifles had to face a lot of fallout after that. Now, again, if you want to shed any light on what has been learned from that.
Yeah, that was another unfortunate incident on the 4th of December 2021. It was surely a case of mistaken identity. But what I would want to bring to your notice is the fact that when this happened, there was a lot of coverage in the media saying that the security forces have set the time, the clock back, for all these years of peace, etc., have become redundant and such like. But I, heading the force, was very confident that our troops will be able to win the, the confidence of the people there, which is exactly what has happened. In fact, 6 months after the incident, in June 22 itself, the villagers of not just Oting village where this incident happened, but complete Mon district, they started approaching us like friends before. And today you will be surprised to know in Oting where this incident happened, we have an operating base also, a temporary operating base, which nobody would have ever imagined. And this operating base has not come at our request. It is at the behest of the people of that village. They wanted this post to be created. So for them to gain our confidence so fast speaks volumes about what our soldiers have been doing here.
Then again, when you talk about AFSPA and how over time it has evolved, it has been taken away from certain regions and areas, how do you see that moving on ahead, and how important or significant is its necessity?
Like you would agree, Amitabh, ASPA by itself cannot be here endlessly. So surely its time will come when it has to be removed, and surely this cannot happen overnight. So when it was decided that ASPA has to be taken off from certain places, it was a very conscious decision that was taken. There were a lot of soul searchings that was done, and we realized that there were places where the levels of violence had gone down very low. There was this huge confidence that the state police were showing that they could handle the situation. They didn't need us anymore. And it was a decision that has evolved by consensus, which is why the ASPA was removed from those 16 police stations initially in Manipur and about as many in Nagaland. From then to now, nothing very major has happened in those areas. So we have this confidence that going ahead, gradually we shall be able to take this off from the other places also, as going forward when we have more and more peace and development happening in other places.
Nair, again, like I said, really appreciate your time during, I know how busy you are and where all you need to be at this very moment. So appreciate your time and sharing all your experience with us.
Thank you, Abda. Thank you so much.
And to our viewers, do send us your feedback. You can, of course, follow our Telegram channel or other social media sites to get updates on when we put up articles on our website or interviews like this with the Director General of Assam Rifles, Lieutenant General P.C. Nair. This is StratNews Global. I'm Amitabh Revi.
For the latest in strategic affairs, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the bell icon for updates.
This is StratNews Global. I'm Amitabh Revi. We're extremely privileged to have with us the Director General of Assam Rifles, Lieutenant General P.C. Nair, and we are extremely privileged to be in one of the easternmost inhabited locations in India, Vijaynagar. General, thanks of course for facilitating this trip. We've been trying it for a long time.
Thank you.
You explain the extremely rich history of this place and beautiful place that it is.
Right. Amitabh, firstly, when I speak of history of this place, I want to cover it in two parts.
Sure.
One is the place itself, and then the role that Assam Rifle has played being here. So, this complete bowl is about 730 square kilometers. When we talk of the Vijaynagar bowl, Vijaynagar dagger as you call it, it's actually in the shape of a dagger which juts into Myanmar. 730 square kilometers, like I said, and it's encircled by two prominent ridges. One is what we see in the front is all Hpungan ridge, and what you see behind are the Patkai ranges.
Correct.
So between these two ranges is enclosed or sandwiched this bowl. The history, if we go back in time, the first time that people came to know of this was during the World War, sometimes 1942-43, Second World War, when the Allied forces who were operating in Burma, now Myanmar, somewhere this side, they withdrew as the Japanese were advancing through Burma. So now they came through a certain place called Fort Hertz then. Now it is called as Putao. It's about 35 kilometers due east as the row flies.
Right.
And let me indicate this to you on ground.
Sure.
If you see, that's a yellow flag.
Yep.
From the yellow flag, if you go upwards towards the sky,
Yeah.
a little to the right, you see a saddle kind of a feature. That is where this border pillar or BP 184 lies. So it was from there that some of the Allied troops came in into this bowl, and they were rescued by the Assam Rifles then. Their further maintenance was also carried out through air, for which Assam Rifle had a major role to play. Two other places I shall show, but before that, let's come back to history. Thereafter, this area came into prominence only in the early 50s, and as we graduated towards the 60s, and specifically the 1962 Indo-China War. Now, in this, it is not that the 1962 war happened all of a sudden. There were certain overtures that were being made to the Chinese, the increase in the troop deployment, their statements were becoming very hostile. So that is when we realized that this is a particular part of the territory or country which we need to have a physical presence on, because this place is strategically very important. So that is insofar as the history goes.
Just picking up from the last point, General, that you're saying is strategically very important. Now explain that to a lay viewer.
Okay, why this 730 square kilometers is very important is from this you get an approach to the southern banks of Brahmaputra. What that means is from here you would head straight to Dibrugarh, Jorhat and onwards to Guwahati. There is absolutely no need of crossing the Brahmaputra. So just imagine a scene where you have troops deployed along the northern borders, along the high reaches of Arunachal, but what right behind on the southern bank if somebody just comes in. So there lies the significance of this. Why it was not occupied was because of the remoteness. As we flew in, you saw how dense the jungles were. You have adequate shots of that to show it to your viewers. So when we talk of hostile terrain, it will not be understood till the time they actually see this. Once you give these shots, I'm sure they'll understand. So let's go back in time. That's when we decided to come here. This complete area was like that. it was all covered by forests, and that is when we decided to come here. So that is the strategic importance of this.
Any other passes that you would like to point out the significance of?
Yeah, there are two important passes here. One is the Chaukan Pass and the other is the Hpungan Pass. If I can indicate this to you on ground, if you look straight ahead, you have this Kanat, line of Kanat, and then you have a blue board that has been put, ahead of which you have a pink flag on the tree.
Correct.
Somewhere in line with this, 47 kilometers from here, aerial distance, is where the Chaukan Pass lies. The other pass I wish to indicate is, again, let's look behind. If you see, there's this red flag on the left, straight ahead, ahead of this viewpoint, this red flag which you see. From the red flag, again, in that direction lies the Hpungan Pass. So these two passes are actually the only points of entry into this bowl, Vijaynagar bowl. So we knew the importance, significance of this in the 50s when an aerial recce of this was carried out by Assam Rifle troops, and it was realized that these two passes have to be occupied if we have to deny occupation of this bowl by anyone.
You've just met, General, a lot of people here who the Assam Rifles itself has settled in terms of your ex-servicemen. Now, since you've already established the significance of the area, now could you explain the significance of establishing people or inhabiting the place as well?
Okay. Interestingly, Amitabh, I'm glad you asked this question. The first inhabitants who came here were not us. It were the Lishus or Yobins, as they call. And they came in here from this general area of Putao, which I told you. They would come here intermittently for hunting. There were exotic animals here. And what they would look forward to most were the musk deers. They were in plenty here. So the first settlement of Yobins happened somewhere in this direction where we have Gandhigram, the village called Gandhigram, which is about roughly 20 kilometers from here.
Right.
So that is when the first settlement of Lishus or the Yobins, they came in somewhere late 40s, early 50s. So they were the first settlers. So I spoke of the aerial recce that Assam Rifle carried out in the early 50s. Now that is when we saw this dwelling, these hutments of Lishus, and we realized, yes, there is somebody here. And that is also when we realized we need to have our people also here.
Understood. Again, just pulling back and looking at the big picture, General, and joining the dots in terms of India's look east policy in Myanmar and Burma, if you'd like to do that for us as well.
What is traditionally known to all of us is, of course, now it's gained a huge amount of traction, and rightfully so, is our Act East policy. If it has to fructify, at least the land access to Myanmar lies through what is Mizoram and Manipur. What is not known to people is also there's a third axis, which is Pangsau Pass, which lies due southwest of this Vijaynagar, not very far from here. Now, this through this Pangsau Pass goes this Stillwell Road or Lido Road, as it was called. This is a road which is roughly about 1,762 kilometers. Passes through 3 countries, starting from Lido in Assam, goes through enters Myanmar through Pangsau, and then you have this road traversing almost 1,000 plus kilometers through Burma, through the upper Chindwan reaches, and then it enters Yunnan province. Yeah. So, for our Act East policy, other than Mizoram and Manipur, you could also consider accessing through these through Pangsau Pass. Only thing is, instead of going to China, we could divert towards Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam.
Again, just stepping back, General, and talking about we knew why we needed to come here, but if you could explain the how, and because that is also quite a super story.
Okay, like I said, the time that we discovered that there are people living here, the Lushis, was late 50s, and that was also matching with the time when the Chinese were making certain offensive overtures at the cost of repeating. So we decided to have our physical presence here. An operation or an expedition was first undertaken by roughly a platoon strength 32 people under an officer from 7 Assam Rifles called Major Sumer. He is the person who came with this body of troops, and incidentally for their administration they had about 5 elephants and close to 126 porters.
This explains
This explains how difficult it was. 126 porters, not porters, I mean ponies, to maintain a platoon strength. So that explains what is the kind of logistics required for them. So this operation or this expedition was called as Srijidka. Now it's a word which most of us don't know. I have to research what this word is. In Hindi, it means जो सुंदरता के ऊपर victory या विजय पाती है, that is what is Srijidka. So and why deep meaning? Because this is such a beautiful area, as you would notice. So this expedition was launched then in the month of March 1961. Just note, it is a year and a half before the 62 war. So that is when this first expedition came. The body of troops, they cut through very thick jungle, moved for about 95 days. Thereafter the rains set in. So that was around June when they had to call this expedition. So while they tried for 95 days, but they had to call this off. Subsequently, once the rains subsided, the then IG, the force was being headed by a brigadier, Major General A.S. Guraya, who was then a brigadier but later on went to become a major. So he, as the head of the force, again led the expedition. And now this was a larger force
this time.
Successfully this time. And if I recollect, they had about 7 officers with them, close to 112 or 120 people, as also 365 ponies, besides a large number of porters. So these people, their job was in some way made easy because the earlier expedition had come. Major Sumer, who had taken part in the first expedition, came along with them. But what I also forgot to mention in my earlier part was when Srijidka 1 happened, they came to this village,
Gandhigram.
Yeah, which is now called as Gandhigram. So the Indian flag was established there by Major Swarn Singh sometimes in June 1961. So when Srijidka 2 happened under General Guraya, one, like I said, their job was made easier because a certain part of the route was already recceed. Thereafter, they progressed, came to where we are, Vijaynagar. This was not called Vijaynagar. And from here, of course, they had 2 sub-parties, one which went to Hpungan Pass, which was there as indicated, and the second one to Chaukan Pass, which is here. So they had 2 teams which went to these, and they hoisted the Indian flag. Now here, interestingly, as they were coming to Vijaynagar from Gandhigram, en route, they met about 300 people. These 300 people had come from Chaukan Pass. And when questioned, they said there is another batch of about 3,000 people who had come in from China, armed, large number of them armed, who were to come here in a week's time. So this part is something which is not known to most of us. Everyone know of what happened in Siachen, where we preempted the Pakistan by 24 hours. General Kulkarni, then a company commander. Here, General Guraya's party preempted the Chinese by about a week. So a week later, if we were not here, the Chinese,
Geography,
along with,
would be probably
very, very different. Not only the Chinese, but there were also Kachin rebels who were being tutored by the Chinese. So either the Kachins or the Chinese or a mix of both would have been here. Today we wouldn't have been here if General Guraya's party hadn't reached here in December 1961.
Just again going back, General, to the settlement of your ex-servicemen and the importance of that. Now, in the current context where India is also working on a lot of vibrant villages and there's the purpose and the strategy behind that too, is there anything that can be learned from, say, Vijaynagar? In terms of, establishing villages and settling people, strategic places.
I would like to just make a small correction here.
Right.
The vibrant villages is actually meant for the villages which are along the LAC.
Yeah.
But here, the government has not only for the present financial year, but also for the previous and the next announced certain financial packages, which are coming here. And essentially they are to do with improving the agriculture, horticulture, tourism going forward, because there is certain infrastructure, a lot of infrastructure has to come in here. Besides the other necessities like health, electricity, water, all of these are here. There is a PHC. You would have noticed I just met the PHC head here. We gifted him certain items. So all of that is in place. The fundamentally, there's even a police outpost here. So all administrative elements that are needed in any place are here. Only thing is they need to be built up. This Vijaynagar itself is part of Changlang district of Arunachal. But maybe going forward, we may find a case to make this an independent district. Considering the huge potential it has for tourism, not only in terms of the scenery or the scenic extravaganza that is here, but also the historical significance which I just mentioned.
Again, I know there's a difference between Vijaynagar and the vibrant villages, but just in principle, what you're doing here to make sure that people, one, can stay in a place, and two, they have all the amenities or the things that a normal person in life needs to do. Those vibrant villages will also need that kind of, just in reference to that.
Again, I'm glad you asked this question because there is something that I missed out. Now, you saw the terrain as we flew in here. Till about 1.5, 2 years back, there was no road coming here. So for all these people here, just to see a road, they had to walk 7 to 10 days. 7 to 10 days just to walk to see a road. But now, things are better. There is a two-way jeepable track which has come. So people do come here in jeeps. But going forward, either by the end of this year, surely by the middle of next year, this will be a proper blacktop road, and you will see a great amount of improvement that is happening. The ALG where we landed is also one of the modes of sustenance of the people here. But you would be surprised to know, in terms of percentages, you have only 12 to 13% of days in a year when an aircraft can fly. Which means there are only 40 to 45 days in a year when an aircraft can. And you know the weather, you can't predict in January which are going to be these 45 days.
So that you have to take a chance. Is an absolute game changer. Once it
so the roads surely are going to make a great change. And of course, this ALG going forward will also get developed, besides the other things that I spoke of.
Again, just looking at larger picture of Assam Rifles and involvement across the country, and looking at Jammu and Kashmir, and can you explain to us what the role is, what the Assam Rifles is doing there?
Yeah, this is again a thing which is not known to many, that we have our battalions. Currently, we have 2 battalions there. But traditionally, we've been having battalions earlier also. In fact, to be more specific, in the early 90s, we had 6 of our battalions there at various phases in a period extending over 8 to 10 years. And this 8 to 10 years in the 90s is also a period which we called as a golden period in J&K, because one of our battalions, 7 Assam Rifles, where I incidentally happened to be a company commander later, in the year 1991, there's a major operation called as Operation Dudhi May 1991, where in one operation over 3 days, 72 hours, led by a JCO, they were able to knock off or eliminate 72 militants, 72 Pakistani trained militants. Not just that, they also were able to confiscate or get 118 weapons, of which more than 100 were AK series. Besides this small crowd of 15 people, or this lot of 15 soldiers, were also able to capture or apprehend 15 militants. So this is, I think, an all-time record which is not known anywhere.
True.
And currently, like I said, we also have 2 battalions in the Kashmir Valley, and they are doing as commendable a job.
And again, something that's probably not known extremely widely is the role of women in the Assam Rifles. And it's not only within the country. They've been stationed abroad. They are currently stationed abroad as well.
So, Amitabh, we have a sanctioned strength of 2,500 women soldiers, of which currently, including the recruits, we have 1,800 odd. We have been, these Mahilas do everything that a normal soldier does. Everything, patrolling, ambushes, going in for operations, vehicle searches, everything. And the point that you raised for United Nations, yes, from 2020 onwards, we have been having our contingents going there. 2020, we had first set of about 16 women soldiers who went to Golan Heights, then followed by another group of about 20 Mahila soldiers who went to Congo. And currently, as we speak, we have about 15 Mahila soldiers in Abaya, Africa.
In Sudan. Again, General, we couldn't go on and on talking, but I know, the weather is kind of making us leave here. But again, we want to really appreciate you and all your personnel who facilitated us to come here and spread the message so that more and more people can just find out what's happening.
Thank you, Amitabh. It was my endeavor to make it known to the country how significant this part of the country is and the role that Assam Rifle has been playing.
Thanks again, Sten.
Thanks.
Thanks. And just for our viewers, do send in feedback for this. We finally got out on the field. What do you think of this report? You can get all the latest that we put up on our website or on our YouTube channel, including interviews like this with the Director General of Assam Rifles on our Telegram channel. This is Amitabh Brevi with Rohit Pandita in Vijaynagar and Arunachal